Freakonomics.
We decided we wanted to make an hour about this, about the upside of quitting. One of my very favorite stories involves a young woman, whose name was Allie, who was making a pretty good living at the time as a computer programmer, working for a Fortune 500 company. What kind of money were you making then?
I was making what I considered pretty good money then. $60,000-$70,000 a year.
And how did you like the job?
I enjoyed the job, I guess, to some degree. I never loved it.
You ended up quitting this job after you found something different to do in your new pursuit. Did you have to take a big pay cut?
No, my new pursuit paid quite a bit better than my previous job.
Way better, like 50% more, twice as much?
Yeah, more.
Three times as much? 4 times as much?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
That means you must have had to work way more hours than you'd worked as a computer programmer then, right? If you were earning 4 times more money?
This is what was so great about it. I had to work a lot less.
Tell me, what was this new work that you found?
The new job that I found was I was a high-end escort.
Levitt has gotten to actually know Allie quite well.
I first met Allie when I received an email out of the blue, and it said, I myself am a high-priced escort in the city of Chicago, and I understand that you're collecting data on prostitutes. I have a Palm Pilot with all the information on all the clients I've ever served. Is that the kind of information you were hoping to gather? Sure enough, I went to go meet her, and she did. She turned out to be an extremely interesting woman, and we talked for 5 or 10 minutes about the data. And so I asked her how she set prices, and she said, well, I didn't really know what kind of price to charge, so I just went on the internet and I looked at what the other women were charging, and a lot of them were charging $300 an hour, so I thought I'd charge $300 an hour too. This kind of answer drives economists crazy, because if one thing we know how to do, it's price. Okay, and pricing has nothing to do with looking on the internet. All you need to know is the elasticity of demand and your marginal cost, and you use the inverse elasticity rule. It's like plain as day. And I said, how do you feel when the phone rings? About it, and she said, I'm kind of indifferent. I don't really care whether the phone rings or not. Sometimes I don't even pick it up. I said, my God, you're a local monopolist. You have a downward sloping demand curve. If you could sell one more unit of your good at the same price as the last unit, you would certainly want to. The fact that you don't want to means you can't possibly be pricing enough. But look, I wasn't there to maximize her profit. I was just trying to get access to her Palm Pilot. So I teach an undergraduate course at the University of Chicago. And I thought, well, I should really add a lecture on prostitution. Why don't I call Allie and have her guest lecture for me? So I called her on the phone and I said, hey, how would you feel about coming down to lecture at the University of Chicago? And she said, oh, no, I'm a very private person. I'm a terrible public speaker. I could never do that. What if I pay you your hourly wage to come teach my class? And she said, oh, I misunderstood. For my hourly wage, I would be delighted. What day do you want me to come down? It was an unbelievably great lecture. 1/3 of my students said that it was the single best lecture they received in their 4 years at the University of Chicago. And one of the students raised his hand, and he said, how much do you charge? And she said, $400 an hour. Okay, and I became furious, because in our negotiation, I was trying to be delicate. I told her I'd pay her hourly wage, which I knew to be $300 an hour. And it's not like I can build this to the National Science Foundation and say, oh, I'm too lazy to teach my own class, so I hired a prostitute to do it. Can you reimburse me for it? And the next student raises her hand, and she says, how did you decide how much to charge? And Allie turns, and she has this big beaming smile on her face, and she looks at me, and she said, well, the very first time that I was with Professor Levitt, she said, the very first time that I was with Professor Levitt, he convinced me my services were far more valuable than the $300 I was currently charging. And I raised my price to $400, and it is the best business decision I ever made. So.